Ag Bioscience, the #1 ag tech podcast globally, is now available on video. Hear from leaders and innovators across food, animal health, plant science, ag tech, and agriculture. Mondays at 6 a.m. on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. While you're there, subscribe and leave us a review. It's the Ag Bioscience Podcast with Agronovis Indiana. Get more information at agronovisindiana.com.
Hitting the jackpot in Northwest Indiana. Hard Rock celebrating 5 years in business as a major entertainment destination. How it has evolved into one of the region's biggest success stories, its formula for success, and big growth plans in the pipeline. My conversation with Hard Rock Northern Indiana President Matt Schuffert on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. And I am pleased to be joined on the podcast this week by Matt Schuffert. Matt is the president and general manager of the Hard Rock Casino, Northern Indiana, which, and Matt, it's hard for me to believe it's been 5 years now, right? 5 years in operation?
5 years. Time flies when you're having fun, Gary. That's for sure.
Yeah. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us on the podcast this week. And Hard Rock Casino is part of really a momentum story, I think, that continues to take place, continues to unfold in Northwest Indiana, throughout the region. So many things going on there. Give us your take on kind of the feel, the vibe in Northwest Indiana. Seems as though a lot of things are going your way.
Absolutely. Listen, I'm born and raised here, lived here all my life. But, you look at how things, the direction, the positive vibe that is up here in Northwest Indiana over the last 3, 4, 5 years, it's just remarkable. You look at, we'll talk, a little about a lot of the success that we have had here, but just a lot of things that have popped up recently, right? Bears might be coming to Hammond, Indiana. Lake County Convention Center is coming to Gary on our footprint. All the great things Mayor Melton is doing in the city of Gary to really turn that story around, and just it's a lot of positive momentum. I couldn't be happier to see it as a lifelong Northwest Indiana resident, but looking forward to see it all come to fruition.
Well, I got to ask you about the Bears, because that's a lot of people, certainly in Northwest Indiana, but all over the state of Indiana, are talking about this. What I think is a possibility that was kind of a Hail Mary, if you will, in the beginning, is now very real. And, a lot of people think this is going to happen. What's the feeling in your view? You're a native Northwest Indiana guy. What's the feeling in Northwest Indiana about this potentially happening?
Well, like you said earlier, when the talks first started to come about, several months ago, it was hard to maybe believe it would truly happen. But you got to give credit to Mayor McDermott and our Governor Braun and everybody else in between who's worked very hard and very tirelessly to make this opportunity a potential real opportunity. I think, a lot of people are excited. There's certainly everything you read and you hear that there's a great chance this is going to happen. And it's just going to continue to, certainly the impact it's going to have to all of Northwest Indiana. It's just going to be incredibly positive. I mean, you're looking at one of the biggest sports franchises, one of the most historic sports franchises, moving to Hammond, Indiana. I'm excited. A lot of people are excited. And, everything we see, everything I see is that it's heading down the right direction. It's heading down the right path, and keep your fingers crossed it continues the path it's on.
Yeah. We'll circle back maybe to a little bit more on the Bear story here in a moment. But first, Hard Rock Casino, Northern Indiana, 5 years in business. Give us a thumbnail description of where things are now. The casino business, I mean, you're in a challenging, very competitive business. How is the Gary location there faring in this very competitive marketplace?
Well, like you said, we just celebrated our 5-year anniversary this past May. Kudos to my team here and the nearly 1,400 members of the team here that continue to knock it out of the park each and every day. But certainly, as you mentioned, Gary, incredibly competitive, landscape here, not just on the Indiana side, but all of Chicagoland. Very shortly after we opened the doors in May of 2021, we became the leader from a gaming revenue perspective in the state of Indiana, and we haven't looked back since. The team has worked hard to make this more than just a casino. We wanted this to be a true entertainment destination, and I think we've done a great job of that. A lot of people come here and enjoy things outside of the traditional slots and table games. You got a great entertainment venue, several great restaurants. So this is the place to be on a Friday, Saturday night when you're wanting to, date night, when you want to hang out with your friends. And we just look forward to continued growth. We've got a great location. We've got a great brand on the building, one of the most globally recognized brands in the world. We just continue to build on our positive momentum and just continue to at the end of the day, we're in the guest service business and treating people how they want to be treated, giving them memorable experiences. That's what the team's focused on, and they've done a great job the first 5 years.
Yeah, no, you wanted to create that entertainment destination when you opened your doors, and based on what you're saying there, you've done that. Give us some examples, in your view, how that vision when the doors opened 5 years ago has become reality.
First of all, remember 5 years ago, we were still operating in a pretty restrictive environment, right? The pandemic was still very, very active. Every other slot machine, every other table game spot was left void. Tables were spaced out. We still were social distancing. We couldn't talk to more than 25 people at a time. A lot of things going on. But, at the end of the day, people want to have fun. They want to engage socially. And we've just got so many opportunities for that. Several great restaurants. Entertainment is key here, right? We've really focused on being diverse in the entertainment that we have brought to Hard Rock, Northern Indiana. Music just brings people together and just brings a level of excitement and joy that is hard to create outside of being in a concert. And, it's a great, piece of our business that allows us to continue to bring new people to our venue, right? Music is certainly continues to add a ton of value from that perspective, but not focusing on slots and tables only here, but creating different ways for people to have fun and engage and be part of the Hard Rock experience.
How do you differentiate yourself? A market like Chicago, big market, a lot of options, a lot of opportunities there. But it's a very competitive marketplace. How does Hard Rock Casino Northern Indiana differentiate itself in that competitive landscape?
Treating people in a fashion that will allow them to remember their experience here and their visit here is memorable. And that's where I give credit to the nearly 1,400 members of the team here from all aspects, right? From that point at ballet when you first walk through the door to being greeted by a member of our security team to interacting with a bartender, just focusing on maximizing that guest experience and treat people how they deserve to be treated, right? People are here spending their time and their money and their entertainment dollars here at Hard Rock, and we want to make sure that they feel that they got something out of that. And don't give anybody a reason to visit one of the many competitors we have in this market. Give them a reason to come back and just treat them with respect. I think that's been at the forefront. That's been, certainly a core value for this team here. And they continue to exceed expectation, I think. And that's a huge reason for our success.
Give us an idea, Matt, in terms of the economic impact. What the impact of the casino has been and continues to be in Northwest Indiana.
Well, certainly one of the largest taxpayers here, one of the largest employers here. But outside of that, Hard Rock is a company that still has the same values and mottos it did back in the early 70s when the first Hard Rock Cafe opened in London. Love all, serve all, take time to be kind, all is one. We've donated almost $10 million back to local community nonprofits, organizations that need, cities, towns that could benefit from our participation, not only financially, but also from a volunteer perspective from our team. We spend a lot of hours outside of here, donating our time to cleaning up the city or partnering with some organization in some fashion to provide, some great organization who's doing great and relevant things, just our support. So outside of the employment, outside of the gaming taxes, outside of the property taxes that we pay, just being able to work for a company who is so vested in the community and wanting to give back, that's what it's all about. I think we've walked that walk and we will continue to talk that talk.
Yeah, I think the casino certainly has been part of what I would consider turnaround story in the city of Gary that's been evolving over the past number of months. I know we were there last summer, and speaking with Mayor Melton, who's a big cheerleader for things that are going on in Gary to turn things around. A city that has had its challenges over the years, but talk about that and talk about what you're seeing again as a native Northwest Indiana guy. What you're seeing in terms of turnaround in Gary and how the casino is playing a role in that.
You're seeing an individual and a team, and Mayor Melton and his team that is doing everything they said they would do, right? From fixing street lights, from fixing potholes, from eliminating blight in the downtown area, which we were a partner with them on. We donated $3 million to the city of Gary to assist with that blight elimination. And like you said, I mean, Gary has had some challenging times over the last 40, 50 years. And you definitely feel, and there's always been a local pride in that city, but you certainly start to feel it growing and growing as you have an individual in the mayor, and Mayor Melton, who has made promises and has far exceeded his promises from that perspective. It's just good to see continued progress, not just a few things here and there. There is continued focus on continuous improvement and making things better for the residents of the city of Gary.
Do you think, in a sense, that the casino, and then more broadly, some of these efforts you're talking about, are kind of answering who were skeptical about maybe that positive turnaround in Gary, that it couldn't happen or wouldn't happen? Do you think you're changing some minds or kind of defying the odds, if you will?
100%. There's always going to be folks who are skeptics, right? And it's hard to hold them accountable for that. Certainly, you look at history and it's you've seen things, some promises not delivered, et cetera, et cetera. But definitely, I think you've seen some people change their tone, change their perspective, change their opinion. They're not so negative anymore, right? And we talked a little bit about earlier on with folks who were skeptical about the whole bear situation, but that's becoming a reality. And I think that is just two great examples of continuous improvement here in Northwest Indiana. But yes, to answer your question, Gary, I think you're starting to change the perception of a lot of skeptics and a lot of naysayers based on what that mayor and his administration and his team are doing in partnership with companies like us, right? We're right there along the ride with them. We have done a lot of things for them financially to make sure they have the tools they need. 4-year matching funding agreement between Hard Rock and the Gary Police Department to get new police cars on the streets, right? We just recently gave $500,000 to the city of Gary to build a new animal control facility. So these are things that we're happy to partner with, but we're also happy to see how excited and happy the residents of the city of Gary are when we can help make improvements like this.
And I know there's a bigger vision that the casino is very much a part of in terms of a kind of an emerging entertainment area or an entertainment district with additional hotels. And of course, the Lake County Convention Center, which has been talked about, or Convention Center in Northwest Indiana, had been talked about for a long time, becoming a reality. Talk about where things stand with that and what that can become in terms of that bigger picture.
Absolutely. No, things have been progressing. There's a lot of administrative legal work that needs to happen when deals like this first come to fruition. So the city is very close to finalizing their deal with the firm that's going to design it and then ultimately build it. So, obviously issuing an RFP and getting responses to that. So looking forward to that being announced very soon, and continuing to work with us here and the site it's going to be located at. Design is expected to start sometime in early July with some groundbreaking early next year. And certainly we're just talking about the Lake County Convention Center and then the Hard Rock Hotel, which will be the Convention Center Hotel. But there's further development across the street that's owned by private developers that call for additional hotels, probably some additional restaurants. So a lot of great things on the horizon, but mayor and us just have this vision for making this kind of Gary's entertainment district, right? And then Lake County's entertainment district. There's a lot of opportunity when you look at Hard Rock's campus, the convention center, the hotel, just being the anchor of all that, and we're excited to see that.
What makes that location attractive from an investment standpoint? Why does it make sense? Obviously, you've got the casino there that's now been up and running for 5 years and going. But in your view, why is Gary an attractive investment site?
Well, this site here is, I mean, just from a location perspective, it's, you pull out of our parking lot, you're on a major interstate 60 seconds, right? 200,000 cars passing by here each and every day. Very easy to get to the major airports, Midway, O'Hare, very close to rail, very close to the shipping. It's just a great location. It's just a great, easy access in and out. And then certainly, us being here as an anchor, I think it makes it certainly more attractive. But yeah, I just think, for a lot of the reasons I mentioned, it's so close to a lot of things, easy to get around, and it's going to be exciting to see things come to fruition.
Do you sense at all, you mentioned the airport and the close proximity there, and for a long time there's been talk about Gary Chicago International Airport and the potential that it has that hasn't necessarily been met to this point, but a lot of people are talking now. You have the FedEx facility, I know, that is going in there. What's the potential for the impact of the airport there and how that plays into this whole equation?
Yeah, certainly. And then thanks for bringing that up. That's a great, amenity to have so close to this location, right? You're there in less than 10 minutes. And a lot of great improvements have been made to the Gary International Airport. Runways have been lengthened. You've got a lot of private type of jet traffic in there now, but certainly as that facility looks to potentially grow and expand its capabilities, just having that so close to this facility to handle certain types of groups, individuals. And you start talking about the Bears coming to Hammond minutes away from that airport. What a hand in hand that just works so well together and being able to get folks in and out and tons of opportunity. The level of service that they provide there. So it's certainly a big opportunity.
Much more ahead with Matt Schuffert, the president and GM at Hard Rock Casino, Northern Indiana. When we return, we'll talk maybe a little bit more about the Bears and that potential, as well as continued momentum in Northwest Indiana when the Business and Beyond podcast returns. Stay with us.
As a bank, PNC prides itself on being boring. But the truth is they couldn't be more excited to serve the dynamic Indianapolis community. For nearly 160 years, they've quietly toiled away to deliver brilliant results for their equally brilliant clients. They have dedicated PNC teams throughout the local area all ready to do the boring work to help you unlock your own brilliance. PNC Bank, brilliantly boring since 1865. PNC Bank, National Association member FDIC.
We build Indiana. The Laborers International Union of North America are men and women building roads and bridges to get Hoosiers where they're going today and a new energy infrastructure that will keep Indiana competitive tomorrow. LIUNA's over 12,000 statewide members also grow local economies, earning good union wages, shopping where they live and work, and paying taxes. We build Indiana for good jobs and stronger communities. The Laborers International Union of North America. We are LIUNA.
And welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. My guest this week is Matt Schuffert. Matt is the president and general manager of the Hard Rock Casino, Northern Indiana, celebrating 5 years in business in Gary, Indiana, and part of an emerging story, an entertainment district, and really a turnaround in the city of Gary as well. And Matt, we mentioned at the outset the Bears and the potential of the Bears Stadium locating in Northwest Indiana. As you look at that potential, and again, not 100% done deal yet, but seems to be pretty close. Should that happen, it would be in Hammond, obviously, but how would you anticipate the impact throughout the region? Certainly in Hammond, but throughout the entire region.
Oh, I mean, it's certainly going to just be a huge benefit for all of Northwest Indiana and the region up here, not only from a job perspective, but from the amount of people that a venue of that size, a stadium of that size, can bring to the community to spend money and provide tourism dollars and just create exposure to an area that wouldn't normally have that large of an exposure. We're talking about an NFL team and what that brings just from a viewership perspective, and it's amazing, right? And I think for those folks in Northwest Indiana who don't think that my city or town is going to benefit, I beg to differ, right? I mean, that bringing an NFL team to Lake County, Indiana is going to just add a tremendous amount of value to Lake Porter County and those other counties surrounding it. And yeah, we look forward to seeing what that brings here. You know, we will be 8 miles away, but there's no doubt we're going to benefit, right?
Yeah.
Every time you bring 70,000 people here and you create that kind of exposure, it's going to create opportunity.
And do you envision, because I know part of that, the Bears deal would be an entertainment area district around the stadium, but could you envision almost a corridor extending out from, from Hammond to places like Gary and other places in the region, especially as you think about not only the NFL games, but Dome Stadium, you're competing for Final Fours, another major entertainment event would likely I would get a Super Bowl as well. With those kinds of events, would you anticipate really an entire region connecting on that?
Absolutely. You get a venue, a stadium like this that brings in, whether it's an NFL game or a Taylor Swift concert, whatever it is, right? Those people come to town and they stay 2-3 days, right? And they venture out, and they very similar to what the Lake County Convention Center is going to do for this area, right? People are going to come to town and they're going to spend money. They're going to get exposure to it. Absolutely. We look forward and I think, I talked a lot about the great job that the team does here, the globally recognized brand that you have at Hard Rock. We're going to have hotel rooms in this area. We're going to have a convention center that'll benefit from having an NFL franchise here, just creating awareness. I'm excited. And I certainly think, there's going to be a lot of benefit across the entire region that's going to be experienced.
When you look at some of the things that we touched earlier on momentum in the region, but things like the extension and the double tracking of the South Shore, which have been talked about for many, many years, and now is reality, and the quality of life, quality of place improvements that have been put in place in a number of communities in Northwest Indiana. Is this, a bit of a tipping point for the region in terms of what's next and kind of that big next thing for Northwest Indiana?
When you talk specifically about the Bears and that potential, that's a huge tipping point for this. This takes this area to the next level. There's no doubt about it. And again, kudos to Mayor McDermott and all the individuals up to Governor Braun who've worked so hard to bring this as a potential reality. I mean, it continues to head down that finish line, and I look forward to the day when it's 100% a certain thing. But it is a huge tipping point, and to be able to even get in the position that we're in today, I think it just signifies the climate to which you can do business and be successful in the state of Indiana, what that signifies, and just the individuals, I think, and the focus on, listen, at the end of the day, it's treating people well, right? It's giving them something that they look forward to being part of and feel special doing it. Bears coming to building a stadium here and the state and getting the Bears in that stadium in Hammond, just another way we as Hoosiers can continue to take care of people and show them what we're all about.
What does this, whether it's the Bears or some of these other projects, the success of the casino, what does that do in your view for confidence in the region and the psyche, if you will, in Northwest Indiana and the emerging brand maybe of Northwest Indiana? Does it have an impact there? Does it impact, again, you're a native to the region. What does it do to folks who live, work, and play there?
Yeah, there's going to be a huge sense of pride. There's going to be a huge sense of we're contributing. This area is contributing more than it ever has, and that's because of the people that live here and the success and the development that can be done here. But that's just going to go a long way with continuing to build upon the residents of Northwest Indiana and just how they feel and how prideful they are of this area. As these little things continue to happen, I think that just continues to build on that, and people are going to be more and more proud to just be a region resident and a resident of Northwest Indiana.
Do you think, is it an overstatement? When you think about entertainment cities, Vegas, Nashville, Austin, Texas, they all have their own entertainment brands, if you will, and people immediately think of entertainment. Do you think Northwest Indiana is kind of writing a new chapter now to create its own identity when it comes to entertainment and being a destination as you look out 5-10 years down the road?
Absolutely. I will say you mentioned some cities there that are just entertainment monsters, right?
Right.
Las Vegas, Austin, Texas, from a music scene perspective. Those two are examples to strive for. But Northwest Indiana And I think we've started to see it come to fruition with our first 5 years being here, and a lot of the things we talked about that are on the horizon absolutely has its opportunity to kind of cement its own unique reputation as an entertainment destination. It'll be unique, right? Because it will be, very much part of Chicagoland, but very much part of Indiana and on its own, but yet being able to leverage the amenities that Chicago has, from a transportation perspective. We have them as well, but nothing to that scale. But, certainly will be in its own way competing against Chicago, but being part of Chicago at the same time, right? But I think this is a huge opportunity to answer your original question of being able to kind of develop its own reputation and perception by folks as an entertainment destination.
Final question for you, Matt, as you look out through the next 5 years. You got 5 years in now with the casino. Where do you envision things in 5 years or maybe 10 years down the road, that vision that you have for the casino and the surrounding area there? What will we see? What would you like people to see in 5 years or so in that part of the state?
Yeah, certainly very hopeful. The Bears are here. Our convention center is up and running and gaining traction. There's probably 800 hotel rooms in this area. This area has really become kind of the entertainment district that we all think it can be, leveraging the Bears, growth and in addition to Hammond. There's nothing but positive things on the horizon. And certainly with continued hard work and continued focus and continued success by the individuals in this area who continue to drive that, things look incredibly bright for this future here, and I'm just very grateful to be part of it.
Matt Schuffert is the president and general manager at Hard Rock Casino, Northern Indiana. Matt, really do appreciate you taking the time to join me on the podcast. You're a busy guy with a lot going on, and we're excited to see what's next, not only for the casino, but for Northwest Indiana as well, and hope to see you soon.
Thanks for having me, Gary. I really appreciate it.
All right. And thank you for joining us on this episode of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. We are a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. And you can download all of our episodes and get Indiana business news 24/7. All you have to do is go to InsideBusiness.com. I'm Gerry Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Hi, I'm Dave Neff, host of Talent Scout. On this show, we shine a light on Indiana's next generation of leaders who are making a difference in business, community, and civic life. These are real conversations about purpose, mentorship, and building a future that matters. Join me as we invest in leadership that lasts. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast app or listen at ibjpodcasts.com.
Your commute just got smarter. Turn drive time into growth time. The IBJ Media Podcast Network gives you front row access to leaders shaping Indiana's economy, culture, and future. No filler, just smart, relevant, local storytelling you won't get anywhere else. Find all of our shows by searching IBJ Media in your podcast app or visit ibjpodcasts.com.